The internet cut out mid-sentence, right as the encryption handshake hit 94%. My fingers froze above the keyboard. No warning. No error. Just dead silence. I ripped off the headset. The walls around me were too quiet. The hum was gone. The cooling fans in the signal rack stopped spinning. I bolted toward the server cabinet and yanked the panel open. No light. No power. No connection. Then I heard them outside. Voices. Laughter. Tools. I pulled back the curtain and saw them. 3 HOA contractors in neon vests, snipping wires like they were trimming hedges. One of them held a coil of thick black cable, my buried fiber line, dragging it across the lawn like garbage. I stormed out the front door, fists clenched, rage burning through my chest. They turned toward me with the same smirking indifference I'd seen a dozen times at HOA meetings. "That's a restricted line," I said, trying to keep my voice level. One of them shrugged. "Wasn't marked." HOA said all surface cabling had to go. "Ugly wires violate the community aesthetic." The other laughed. "Yeah, chill out, man. It's just internet." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A push notification I'd only seen once before. Node 17 down, unauthorized breach. Secure, channel compromised. I stepped back slowly, my pulse spiking. My eyes traced the line they cut, right to the relay box that wasn't just powering my Wi-Fi. It was the uplink to Homeland's WhisperNet, a passive surveillance node embedded beneath the property years ago. A node they didn't even know existed. I turned and walked back inside calmly. My fingers moved faster than my mind. Behind the coat rack, beneath the false panel, I found it, the black case. Cold steel latches. Thumbprint reader. Inside, a secured handset, offline keycard, and a single photo, burnt edges, faded ink. A reminder of the price we pay for staying quiet too long. The phone unlocked with a sharp chirp. Emergency access granted. Security Tier 3 compromised. Initiate lockdown protocol. My thumb hovered. Then it rang. No number. No sound. Just static. And then a voice, garbled but urgent. "You've been exposed. They're already in play." Cut line was the trigger. My heart dropped into my stomach. From the kitchen window, I saw Cheryl, the president, walking briskly toward my driveway, clipboard in hand, fake concern plastered across her face. She knocked once, twice, then tried the handle. I locked eyes with her through the glass. She smiled. "Just checking to see if everything's okay with your landscaping. Always got standard, you know?" I didn't respond. Behind her, one of the workers tugged at a junction box still half open. He stared back at me. Too long. Too deliberate. Then he nodded. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just incompetence. This was planned. Coordinated. Executed with intent. I closed the curtain. The room fell into darkness. The phone buzzed again. Site breach confirmed. Assets exposed. Contingency authorized. I reached for the keycard. The floor beneath me seemed to shift as the weight of it all hit me at once. They didn't just cut a wire. They severed a live node connected to an active Homeland Security operation. And they didn't even know it. Or maybe some of them did. The screen lit up one more time. New message. Begin containment protocol. Do not engage local law enforcement. You are not alone. The house felt smaller suddenly. Quieter. But outside, the laughter had stopped. I looked again. The workers were gone. Cheryl, too. Only the open box remained. Its wires cut, its secrets exposed. Then the secure phone vibrated again, this time harder. Louder. An alert I'd never seen before. Local breach detected. Site compromised. Lockdown authorized. And that's when the lights in the hallway flickered and died. The moment the hallway lights died, instinct kicked in. I dropped low, grabbed the emergency latch under the floorboards, and popped the hatch open. Dust exploded in my face as I descended into the crawl space, dragging the black case with me. Above me, the front door creaked. Slow, careful, deliberate. Footsteps. Not Cheryl. Not HOA. Someone else. I killed my breathing, heart pounding against my ribs. In total silence, I slid the panel shut above me, and pulled the blackout tarp across. Total darkness. Then a faint vibration in my hand. The secured handset lit up. New signal ping. Node 18 active. Surveillance compromised within 500 meters. Someone was triangulating, using my own grid against me. I tapped the screen. Visuals loaded. External cameras were still streaming. Feed was grainy, interference, but I caught movement. A black SUV parked at the end of the block. Doors closed. Two figures. No insignias. And then I saw him. Same man from the wire team. Vest gone. Now in tactical gear. Holding what looked like a jammer. I'd seen this play before. Discredit. Disrupt. Disappear. They were going to make it look like I cracked. I opened my backup kit, pulled out the transceiver chip, and slotted it into the secured phone. A direct line to central relay. If it still worked. It rang once. Then silence. Then her voice. You're compromised, Riley. The only voice I trusted. They used your node as a Trojan. Piggybacked off your surveillance net to mask their own entry. You need to get out. I can't, I whispered. They're here. Inside. A pause. Then initiate retaliation protocol. I didn't respond. I knew what that meant. Wipe the drives. Burn the backups. Sever the trail. End it. The screen pulsed red. Fingerprint required. I hesitated. Memories flooded. Riley and I in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, intercepting transmissions from rogue satellites. The embassy fallout in Pretoria. The decision I made to override command to save a family of 4. The day they marked me unreliable. This was the cost. I scanned the print. System purge initiated. Above me, footsteps again. Closer. Floorboards creaked above the crawlspace hatch. I could hear breathing now. Then a sharp knock. Not on the door. On the floor. They knew. A voice, muffled but unmistakable. Come out, agent. We're here to help. No agency I knew would use that line. No agency I trusted ever knocked first. I pulled the side vent open, slipped through the crawl tunnel, and exited through the storm outlet into the back garden. The night air was still. Too still. Motion sensors triggered as I passed the tree line. I paused, looked back toward my house. Nothing. Then movement. Cheryl again, standing in her robe. No clipboard this time. Just confusion. You need to come back, she called. There's been a mistake. I stepped forward, cautious. Then the words hit me, cold, surgical, rehearsed. They just want to talk. No one in this neighborhood ever just wanted to talk. She wasn't alone. A second figure stepped from behind the bushes. Tactical, black. Suppressed weapon visible at his side. I backed up. She stepped forward. He said you'd listen to me. My jaw tightened. Ooh. Then the comms earpiece sparked to life again. Riley's voice low, urgent. They've turned her. She's not in control. Get out now. Behind Cheryl, the man raised a device. Not a gun. A pulse weapon. I dove behind a shed just as a wave of blue light shattered the air. Metal screamed. My ears rang. The back fence split in half. I reached the buried locker under the mulch, punched in the code, yanked out the gear. Tactical headset, flash rounds, flare launcher. This wasn't surveillance anymore. This was war. And I was back in it. But the rules had changed. As I strapped the vest across my chest and slammed a flare into the launcher, I caught sight of something glinting near the fallen fence. A small transmitter. Red light blinking. Live feed. They weren't just watching me. They were watching through me. I pointed the flare at the transmitter. Then fired. Sky lit up with red fire. In every direction. Dogs barking. Alarms tripping. Floodlights snapping on. Neighborhood waking up. Game over. Or maybe a game finally starting. The secure phone buzzed once more in my pocket. A new message. They're not, HOA. They're in. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not with my front lawn wired for audio, back fence ripped apart, and neighbors watching from their windows like they were expecting a fireworks show. But no one came. No cops. No agents. Just the wind. And the sound of something breaking. Inside me. By morning, I'd reactivated the old surveillance system, micro drones, thermal sensors, fiber line monitors buried 6 inches deep. Everything Homeland said to decommission, I had quietly mothballed. Until now. I connected the uplink node to a modified rig in the attic. No cloud, no traceable trail. Analog. Old school. Untouchable. And still, the feed pulsed red. Something was moving through the neighborhood. But it wasn't cars or kids or mailmen. It was heat signatures. 4 of them. Coordinated. 1 block over. Slow, sweep pattern. Then my front door buzzed. I froze. Not again. I checked the peephole. Not a man in black. Not tactical. It was her. Cheryl. Again. Holding a notice. Behind her, a county sheriff cruiser idled on the curb. I opened the door halfway. She smiled. Plastic. Too wide. We're escalating the citation. My eyes dropped to the paper in her hand. Trespassing. Violation of HOA landscaping rules. Emergency landscaping. I didn't laugh. I couldn't. I stepped out, closed the door behind me. You think I'm afraid of fines? Her eyes flickered. For a moment, a crack in the mask. Then the sheriff stepped forward, chewing gum like he owned the planet. Sir, I need to ask you to lower your voice. I hadn't raised it. He scanned the yard. His hand lingered near his belt. You've had some unusual activity. Neighbors are concerned. I tilted my head. About my lawn? The sheriff took a slow step closer. About you. Behind him, Cheryl was already dialing something into her phone. Not emergency services. No. Private line. I took a breath and dropped the pretense. You're standing above a buried node tied to national security infrastructure. If you cut another line, someone dies. His jaw tightened. He didn't believe me. No one ever does until it's too late. He raised a hand to signal the cruiser. Then the alert hit my earpiece. New signal triangulated. High frequency burst detected. Origin, Rex center roof. I turned my head slowly. Over Cheryl's shoulder, past the mailboxes and the plastic flamingos, the HOA's community building loomed in the distance. And on its roof, a faint glint. Metal. Glass. A lens. They were watching us from their own building. Not HOA. Not local. Someone else had turned that rec center into an op base. The sheriff tapped his foot. You all right, buddy? I didn't answer. He reached out, hand on my shoulder. The world narrowed. I saw the move before it happened. I twisted, deflected, slammed him against the pillar, his own cuffs clicking onto his wrist. Cheryl screamed, but it was hollow. Scripted. She backed away. No panic. Just retreat. They weren't surprised. They wanted this. I ducked behind the fence line and bolted toward the drainage path behind Lot 7. 2 kids stared at me as I passed. One of them recording. Good. Let them watch. Let the world see. I reached the alley behind the rec center and switched to thermal. 3 signatures inside. 1 near the roof. 2 in the conference hall. And then, static. A sudden black wall across all cameras. My drone feed collapsed. Every node flatlined. Someone had found the secondary net. I wasn't ahead of them. I was 2 steps behind. I pulled the sidearm from the lockbox buried under the mulch near the garden gate. Unregistered. Cold. Familiar. I needed leverage. I needed someone who wasn't playing a part. The only person left was Benji, the old neighbor who kept fixing antennas on his roof, claiming to be a ham radio nut. Everyone thought he was just eccentric. But I knew better. He'd served in Sigint during Desert Storm. Retired, buried deep. But his roof had more signal gear than most aircraft. If anyone saw something, it was Benji. I ran to his door, pounded it twice. No answer. I circled around a back, slipped into his garage. Monitors, dishes, recorders, all lit up. And then I saw it. Frozen on screen. Footage from last night. Cheryl, at 2:03 a.m., speaking to a man in a gray suit, handing him a flash drive. They shook hands. She nodded toward my house. And he smiled. Benji stepped out of the shadows behind me, shotgun at his side, unshaven but eyes sharp. Told you not to trust the quiet ones, he muttered. I turned to him. What else did you record? He pointed to another screen, and I stopped breathing. My face, on a watch list, marked terminated. Rogue asset. The government I worked for had just declared me expendable. And now they were using my own neighborhood to erase me. Benji locked the garage from the inside. The doors slammed shut behind us, heavy steel deadbolts clicking into place. He moved like he'd done this before. Too precise, too fast for a man pushing 70. They scrubbed you, he said, voice low, raspy. Same thing happened to my friend in Virginia. Woke up one morning, his badge didn't scan, bank account frozen, records wiped. 2 days later, he accidentally drowned in his bathtub. Except they found burn marks behind his ears. I stared at the screen. My own photo stared back, tagged and red-boxed. Terminated. Rogue asset. Orders issued 12 hours ago. Benji tapped the side of a dusty drive bay. They pushed it through the backdoor node. Someone with internal clearance. This wasn't a random hit. They wanted it public. They wanted it to look like you snapped. I felt the walls closing in. They used Cheryl, I muttered. They used the HOA. They used everything. Benji turned a monitor to another angle, zoomed in on the HOA Rec Center's rooftop. See that dish? Not HOA tech. Military-grade burst antenna. Capable of uploading encrypted packages direct to low orbit. Whatever they're feeding, it's leaving ground within seconds. I leaned closer. On the corner of the roof, barely visible, an infrared signal flickering in rapid intervals. Benji nodded grimly. And someone's talking back. I sat down hard. The implications were too big. They weren't just surveilling. They were transmitting, which meant they weren't local. They were operational. I turned to Benji. We need access to that building. He was already pulling out a blue duffel bag from behind the generator stack. Inside, old tactical gear, EMP charges, signal scramblers, breach tools. Dusty, worn, still deadly. He grinned. Thought you'd never ask. By nightfall, we were in position. Lot 14, empty model home, overlooks the rec center. No one ever bought it because the plumbing had issues. HOA had kept it listed for years as a community improvement property. I'd always thought that meant corruption sinkhole. I was right. We set up comms and scoped the center. 2 guards, dressed casual. But their movement was all wrong. Straight line patrols, earpiece checks, hand-to-waist reflexes. Benji whispered, they're not contractors. I bet you $100 they answer to someone in Langley. Or worse, someone off books. At 3:19 a.m., we moved. Crawled the dry creek bed, hugged the sprinkler system line, and reached the back access door. I wired the keypad with a temporary feedback loop from Benji's signal spoofer. Door unlocked. No alarm. We were in. The first hallway was quiet. Too quiet. No cameras. No motion lights. Just posters on the walls about community wellness and HOA dues deadline. Benji scanned with his thermal. One signature. Top floor. Still. The elevator was disabled, so we took the back stairs. My heart pounded louder with each step. I could feel the air shift as we reached the top. And then, click. Floor tile depressed beneath my foot. Freeze, Benji snapped. I obeyed. He pulled out a pin from his vest and wedged it under the tile, carefully lifting the square. Tripwire. And not just any wire. Plastic encased. Heat sensitive. We just walked into a trap. Benji disabled it with a hand as steady as a surgeon. They're expecting someone. But not us. At the top of the stairs, we reached the door to the rooftop. Locked from the outside. No keypad. Just a mechanical latch. Benji handed me the micro breach. I placed it, activated the silent charge. It hissed, burned through the latch. The door opened. And there she was, Cheryl, alone. Standing beside the antenna, eyes glassy, pupils dilated. Not surprise. Resignation. You shouldn't be here, she said. I stepped forward, stunned. You don't understand what they're doing. She shook her head. No. You don't understand what I agreed to. She reached into her coat. Benji raised his weapon. Don't. She froze. then slowly pulled out a small device. Flash drive, marked only with a red X. They told me if I delivered this, my daughter would be removed from the list. She's only 17. My breath caught. They lied to you, I whispered. She looked down. I know. Then she tossed me the drive and jumped. No hesitation. I screamed, lunged too late. Her body vanished over the edge. A sickening thud echoed from below. Benji rushed to the ledge, looked down, shook his head. She's gone. I looked at the flash drive. Whatever was on this, people were dying for it. Benji pulled out a portable reader, plugged it in. The screen loaded, and what we saw made the blood drain from our faces. Names, coordinates, private citizen data from our own neighborhood. Every house, every family, every child. Flagged, rated, sorted by compliance. It wasn't just surveillance. It was targeting. Benji turned to me, voice hoarse. They're building a behavioral database, baiting the community, stress testing control models. I stared at the screen, then down at my hands. They didn't just cut my cable. They hijacked my entire life to power a domestic psyop. And now everyone was in it. Every home, every device, every neighbor. The flare had only lit the match. Now the whole neighborhood was about to burn. We ran, not away, straight through the fire. Benji and I slipped out the back before the response team arrived. No alarms, just silence too loud to trust. They didn't need sirens. They already knew we were there. We hit the tree line behind the tennis courts, took the long route through the dark, cutting between backyard fences and whispering lawns. Every window a possible witness, every porch light a threat. By the time we reached my house, the lights were off. Too quiet. Front gate open. That wasn't how I left it. I scanned the porch. No movement. Benji tapped his chest rig. Multiple thermal hits. Inside, I nodded once. We circled to the back. The sliding door was cracked, intentionally. A message. They wanted me to walk in. So I did. The first thing I noticed was the smell, acrid, metallic. Not blood. Burnt circuits. The second thing was the silence. My server rag-gutted. Hard drives missing. My work erased. I turned toward the hallway and froze. Standing there was my neighbor, Caleb. The quiet one. Always nodding, but never speaking. With his wife. His kid. Only this time, he wasn't holding a coffee cup. He had a suppressed weapon. Trained. Calm. Too calm for a mailman. Benji raised his shotgun, but I stopped him. Caleb lowered his weapon. Wasn't supposed to be like this, he said. His voice was soft, worn, heavy. You weren't supposed to come back. They were going to stage a vanishing. Clean exit. But then you kept digging. I stepped forward slowly. You're one of them. He nodded once. Field liaison. Embedded 2 years. My job was to monitor until you tripped the node. Benji's grip tightened. I looked at Caleb's eyes. They weren't cold. They were broken. You have a kid, I said. He blinked once, which is why I'm telling you this now. They've flagged the whole district. Behavioral failsafes. If the test model shows resistance, they activate containment. I frowned. What kind of containment? He looked away. EMP sweep. Controlled panic. Emergency response lockdown. Then blame it on a tech malfunction or rogue ex-agent. Benji cursed under his breath. That's tonight, isn't it? Caleb didn't answer. He just dropped a folded paper on the floor and walked out the back, disappearing into the shadows like smoke. I picked up the paper. Grid map. Target zones. 2 a.m. 42 minutes from now. We had less than an hour to stop the largest domestic experiment in our country's history. I turned to Benji. We have to expose this. All of it. He nodded. We're going to need more than footage. We need voices. Proof. People. We started knocking on doors. At first, no one answered. Then a teenager opened one. Then a mom. Then a retired veteran with a half-blind dog. Within 20 minutes, there were 20 of us. By 30, nearly 50. All of them had stories. Suspicious outages. Data errors. package reroutes, strange vans parked outside their homes. They weren't crazy. They were test subjects. And finally, they knew it. Benji set up a portable relay. We pulled the footage from the flash drive, overlaid it with timestamps, synced it with Caleb's map. Then we streamed it. Not to the cloud. Direct to every smart TV, phone, and digital billboard in a 10-mile radius. The neighborhood lit up like a Christmas tree. Screens flashing red. Warning messages. Dossier. Coordinates. And then live footage. From the HOA rec center roof. Black van pulling away. Followed by 3 more. Too late. We had them. The feed pinged our relay. Then it spiked. A direct trace attempt. They were trying to burn it. Benji smiled. Let them. It's back to 10 local nodes mesh routed. Can't kill it all. He hit the last switch. And the final layer went live. A confession. Cheryl's voice. From the flash drive. Audio only. Explaining everything. Why she did it. Who offered the deal. What the drive contained. She named names. And the names were real. Government contractors. Private firms. Even 2 elected officials. The neighborhood wasn't just a test site. It was a prototype. And we were the live sample. Benji looked at me, breathing heavy. We just launched a digital war. Outside, sirens began to rise. Not police. Federal. Helicopters overhead. Spotlights cutting across roofs. But now the whole neighborhood was awake. Windows opened. Phones pointed skyward. People recording. Screaming. No more secrecy. No more hiding. And then, an explosion rocked the rec center. A fireball lit the sky. They were burning evidence. But it was too late. The truth was already out. And so were we. Benji pulled the drive from the relay and handed it to a girl, 15, maybe 16. The same one who had recorded me running days earlier. He smiled at her. Get this to someone who still believes in freedom. She nodded and vanished into the crowd. As the choppers closed in, I looked at the flames in the distance and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not rage, not grief, hope. Because once the truth hits daylight, no force on earth can bury it again. The air was thick with smoke and static. Sirens wailed across the horizon. Searchlights swept across rooftops. Helicopters hovered low, wind ripping through trees like a war zone had cracked open right above us. This wasn't containment. This was suppression. And yet, people didn't run. They stood. Hundreds of them now, crowding the sidewalks, porches, rooftops. Phones in hand. Cameras rolling. Streaming live. The HOA, their little suburban fiefdom, had just become ground zero for something too big to hide. Benji and I ducked behind the old park pavilion. Across the street, vans unloaded unmarked agents, dressed like contractors, moving like soldiers. They weren't here to negotiate. We watched as they stormed house after house, no warning. Seizing routers, smashing hard drives, grabbing people by the wrist and forcing them to unlock their phones. One man resisted. They dragged him out in front of his wife and zip-tied him face down on the lawn. A child screamed. A neighbor recorded. Another cried. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. Benji muttered, they're betting on fear. Same tactic they've always used. Flood the system with panic, then take control. But they miscalculated. This time, we'd already lit the fuse. A deep rumble broke through the chaos, louder than the choppers. News trucks. 3 of them. Channel 7. Channel 4. Even a national syndicate. Reporters climbed out mid-roll, ignoring warnings, stepping right into the fray. Microphones raised. Questions shouted. Flashbulbs firing. One brave journalist cornered a black-suited agent near the mobile command trailer. Who authorized this operation on U.S. soil? Are you detaining civilians without warrants? No answer. Just stone silence and a turn back. But the crowd saw. And the internet saw. And that's when everything shifted. People started marching forward, slowly, together. From both ends of the block, 2 groups met in the center, linking arms. Teachers, veterans, teens in hoodies, moms with strollers. unarmed, but unbreakable. The agents froze. They weren't trained for this kind of resistance. Not angry, united. Benji tapped my shoulder. No. While they're distracted, we slipped through the alley into the HOA board house. The place was deserted except for one man, the HOA president, Gregory Lowe. Trembling hands, sweat on his forehead. He was stuffing folders into a shredder that was already jammed. I stepped into the light. He froze. You think this was just about dues? I said. You signed off on psychological data collection. You approved the installation of surveillance under the guise of fiber upgrades. I was told it was for security, he stammered. They showed me letters, bad actors, foreign threats. No, Benji snapped. They showed you numbers, promises, power. Lowe dropped the folder. What happens now? He whispered. I walked over, picked up the last sheet before it hit the ground. It was a memo. Clearance level, Red Echo. Initiative, Compliance Index Trial Zone 4B. Signed by a name I hadn't heard in years. Langley. The very program I helped dismantle before going dark. Benji looked at me. They brought it back. Renamed it. Refined it. Tested it on Americans, I said. Behind us, the sounds of the standoff rose to a roar. Then gunshots. 1, 2. Then screams. People running. I looked at Benji. Too late for diplomacy. He handed me a flare gun. You've got 30 seconds. I kicked the back door open and sprinted to the old water tower. Climbed fast. At the top, I saw it all. The agents had opened fire near the barricade. Someone was on the ground. Couldn't tell who. Didn't matter. I raised the flare gun, aimed high, fired. Red exploded in the sky. A signal. Benji activated the emergency broadcast override. Every screen within 50 miles turned black. Then white. Then the message played. This is a message from former Homeland analyst Eli Ward. They cut my internet to silence me. They used this community as a test bed for digital authoritarianism. They exploited trust, neighbors, families. They lied, and we caught them. Then we played Cheryl's voice one last time, explaining how she was promised her daughter's freedom in exchange for betrayal. Her words hit like a hammer. I watched from the tower as even the agents slowed. Some lowered their weapons. One took off his earpiece, because now the world was watching. Now there was no hiding. The flare's smoke curled above us, red and angry. And then, another explosion. Behind the school. I turned sharply. Another antenna. One we hadn't known about. Engulfed in flame. They were trying to wipe the whole grid. Burn it all before the investigation. Benji radioed me. They're panicking. Means we're winning. The crowds surge again. This time toward the agents. Not to fight, to record, to witness, to testify. And for the first time, the agents stepped back. Not ordered. Voluntary. Because no one wants to be the face of tyranny on a live stream. I climbed down, breath shaking. We made it back to the crowd just as the sirens faded into the distance. No arrests, no press statements, just silence. The kind that comes after an empire realizes the people won't look away anymore. Benji looked at me. You know this isn't over, right? I nodded. They'll shift, rebrand, try again. He smirked. So will we. And from the crowd, I heard a voice soft but clear. Tell the truth. Then another. Tell it loud. And another. Tell it until they can't silence us again. 3 days later, the neighborhood was unrecognizable. Not from damage. From unity. Lawn chairs lined the sidewalks where patrol vans used to sit. Neighbors who'd never exchanged more than a wave were now planning shifts to guard the block. Armed not with weapons, but with truth. With each other. But under the surface, the tension hadn't left. It was waiting. Breathing. The kind of silence that only comes after you survive something you can't quite explain to the outside world. Benji sat on my porch with a chipped mug, half coffee, half regret. The kind of man who smiled through loss, but carried every scar in his spine. He was watching the corner, where a teenager was chalking the words, "We are not experiments," across the sidewalk. I looked at the scorched garden beds, the half-melted fiber nodes still embedded in the ground. No one's come to fix them. No one dared. There hadn't been a single press release. No federal agency claimed responsibility. No charges. No arrests. But the broadcast, they never stopped. Every 20 minutes, someone else uploaded footage. Another angle. A new voice. A mother whose internet had gone dark at 3:12 a.m. sharp for 6 nights in a row. A father whose cameras caught a man unplugging his router with military precision. The web had done what the courts refused to. It remembered. Benji handed me a new phone, off-grid, untraceable, encrypted. They'll come back. In a different suit. Different logo. Different excuse. I nodded. Then we'll be ready. He looked at me, something unreadable in his eyes. You ever think about just disappearing again? I did. Then they cut the wrong wire. We both laughed, but it didn't reach our eyes. Later that night, the girl from the crowd, the one we gave the drive to, showed up at my doorstep. Her name was Layla, 17. Her father was one of the first people detained during the sweep. She handed me a notebook. Inside were signatures, stories, names, over 200 of them. People from all over the country. Some had seen similar black vans. Others had lost internet at precise, recurring intervals. One claimed her son was enrolled in a study without consent. All with one request. Tell our story too. Layla looked up at me. They think they can bury the truth. But its roots now. That hit harder than she knew. Because somewhere deep down, I started to believe this fight would end when the footage aired. But this wasn't a fire to be extinguished. It was a spark that caught. Benji joined us, holding a tiny device, no bigger than a key fob. He'd rebuilt a mesh node, one that could broadcast encrypted signals from any device within range. We start here, he said, block by block. We mounted it beneath the old street lamp, just where the flare had gone off that night. No ceremony, just purpose. That week, volunteers built a digital map, tracking known data suppression zones. Red for confirmed activity, yellow for suspicious clusters, blue for safe networks. By the end of the month, it covered 3 states. At first, the networks tried to ignore it. Then they tried to discredit it. But when a congressman quoted our broadcast live on national TV, everything changed. An independent panel was formed. Whistleblowers came forward. Caleb's wife filed a sealed affidavit that later cracked open an entire chain of internal memos linking suburban HOAs to defense subcontractors. The trial hasn't started, but the silence is gone. The people are listening now. Still, it came at a cost. Benji's house was broken into 2 weeks after the first national hearing. No valuables taken, just his backup drives. I found him sleeping in his truck the next morning. I'm not running, he said. Just resting with my eyes open. Layla started a podcast. First episode? Her father's voice reading the Constitution, one line at a time, with static where his name should have been. She called it the unnamed. I kept my routine quiet. No flashy interviews. No stage. But every night at 11:47 p.m., the same minute they cut my internet, I log on. And I listen. To them. To you. To the voices they tried to erase. One night, I got a letter in a plain envelope. No return address. Inside a photo. A group of people, all dressed like contractors. All standing near the edge of a dark, empty street. On the back, scribbled in red ink. You made us visible. Benji looked over my shoulder and chuckled. Guess we've got fans now. No, I said. Witnesses. Because that's all we ever were. Not heroes. Not soldiers. Just witnesses with a signal. So if you're still watching, if you've made it this far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Not for me. For the girl with a notebook. For the mother who never got her son's data back. For the thousands of people quietly screaming into black mirrors, wondering if anyone sees them. We see you. And they'll never cut that wire again.